Going? All right. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. How's everyone doing? Alhamdulillah. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. And we have a really great program for tonight planned, inshallah. But first, I wanted to introduce our amazing moderators, our co-hosts for tonight, Sister Zainab Iqbal and brother Zead Ramadan. Sister Zainab Iqbal is a freelance journalist at the moment, but she's a local journalist from Brooklyn. She was a journalist at the Brooklyner and is very well known in the community for covering Muslim issues. Everyone pretty much knows her. Brother Zead Ramadan is the former president of CARE New York. He was a New York City Council candidate in 2013, and he was the founding chairperson of the Malcolm X and Dr. Betty Shabazz Memorial. He was also a 15-year member and former chairperson of Community Board number 12 in Manhattan, and he's currently the interim executive director of the West Harlem Development Corp. Let me add them to the stream right now, so we'll get to see our hosts. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Can you guys all hear me?
Yeah, walaikum
All right.
assalam.
Great. So we'll get started with the organizational speakers. First person we're going to get started with is Dr. Abdul Hafiz. Let me pull him up. Give me 1 second. All right. Okay. I think he should be coming in right now. How are you guys doing, though?
Pretty good.
Alhamdulillah. I like the beard on Muziad. I did not see that the last time.
Neither did I 2 weeks ago. I went on vacation. I just decided not to shave, and I came back and I was gray. Couldn't believe it. I went up to a mountain and came back gray.
MashaAllah. It's looking good. It's a good look. I like it.
Good look, yeah. Thank you.
All right, let's he should be coming in. Let me actually start with the people that we actually wait. Nope. I think that's him right now. And no, I do not see him. Okay, so let's start with the people that we have right now, and we'll get Dr. Abdul Hafiz in a second. So let's start with our brother from Muslim American Society, Abdullah Aql. Abdullah Aql is the Mass Pace, which is Public Affairs and Civic Engagement, Staten Island co-lead. He's going to deliver a few remarks.
Hey, Assalamualaikum, everyone. I hope you guys are all doing well. It's a great and honor to be here with Brother Zead and Sister Zainab and Brother Mus'ab, and here with Majlis Ash-Shura, the Islamic Leadership Council of New York. Mass New York and Mass Pace in specific strives to make sure that Muslims are engaged in political decisions that affect us, because we all know that whether we are on the table or not, we're either on the table or we're on the menu, and we have to make sure that we're involved in politics in New York, because it affects us in so many different ways, from the top where it happens in the governor to the mayor to city council members and community boards. We have to be involved on every single level, and Mass New York Pace strives to do exactly that, and that's why we're really happy to be here today with these fellow organizations and with Majlis Ash-Shura to ensure that Muslims are involved in this political process and are involved with this mayoral election happening in June, inshallah. So Jazakallah khairan for having Mass New York here with you all, and we look forward to be watching the rest of this. Assalamualaikum.
Jazakallah khairan, Abdullah. Let's get the next speaker, Dr. Abdul Hafiz. Dr. Abdul Hafiz is the president of Majlis Ash-Shura. He's kind of a big guy, but he will never admit it himself. Very humble, mashallah. I will add him to the stream right now. Dr. Abdul Hafiz, you're live. You can start.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First, I would like to welcome everyone on behalf of Majlis Ash-Shura. Majlis Ash-Shura is the organization or the umbrella organization that really tries to unite all Muslims together so that we are one voice, and we are looking towards helping the society, whether Muslim community or in general the society of New York and the general society at all. So I welcome every one of you, and we hope that this forum here will give us an opportunity to know the different opinion and different ideas and different probably some type of programs or some types of decisions that will come out later on from the candidates regarding our community and regarding the benefits that our community is looking for and the needs that our community is looking towards filling them up. So I welcome everyone, and I hope that everyone, inshallah, will have a good time in asking the questions and defining the different spectrum that we are as a Muslim community looking forward to identify and also to work on together. I welcome Akhi Zead Ramadan and Sister Zainab and all the brothers and the sisters, and also we welcome our candidates, the candidates whom we are looking forward to work with later on, inshallah. So with that, I give back to Musab, and I hope that this will give an opportunity for us to get to know more about the candidates.
Jazakallah khairan, Dr. Abdul Hafiz. Let me add next Imam Omar Abdul Jalil from the Association of African American Imams.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullah.
Wow. We can hear you.
Assalamualaikum. I don't know, can you hear me, Sheikh?
Yes.
Alhamdulillah, first of all, I want to, alhamdulillah, shukran, jazakallah khairan, thank the Majlis Ash-Shura for hosting this forum today, inshallah. I'm basically here to listen and to learn, inshallah, and see what is the aspiration, the goals and the aspirations of those candidates who are seeking to become the next mayor of the city of New York. Inshallah, so I will not talk too long, but I will just be listening, and I will have questions later on, inshallah, as we impanel the candidates, inshallah. Shukran, jazakallah khairan.
Jazakallah khairan, Imam Omar Abdul Jalil. Next, I wanted to call up Brother Tariq Rahman from NY Muse. He's the executive director of NY Muse. I'll add him to the stream right now. I think he's having some technical issues. I don't know where he went. Yeah, okay, that's fine. I'll get Brother Abu Ahmad Nur Zaman. He's the former national president of Muslim Ummah of North America and currently a Shura member of Muslim Ummah of North America. Let me add him into the stream right now.
Alhamdulillah, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. I'm on behalf of Muslim Ummah of North America, MUNA, MUNA. MUNA has been working and serving the Muslim community for more than 30 years. We are stationed in Brooklyn, but it's a national organization. So Alhamdulillah, we are very proud to be and be the New Yorkers. New York City is a unique city. This people call it, this is the capital of the whole world. Only in Queens, more than 70 languages are being spoken. So we have people from all over the world, and you know, Muslim community is very diverse, and we have people from all over the world here, alhamdulillah. And Muslim community is the fastest growing community in this city. So today here, we would like to hear and listen on all of our leadership and the people connected with the masjid and other, why they all are here to listen. from the future mayor, inshallah. This community has gone through a lot: 9/11, economic crisis, pandemic, post-pandemic. I mean, everything. So we are part and parcel of this city, and we like to hear from the next mayor, inshallah. And as a citizen, we would like to help each other and make New York City a better place for everybody. Thank you for listening. Assalamualaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Jazakallah khairan, Brother Abu Ahmad. Next, I will have Sister Bibi representing the Arab American Federation, as well as Bay Ridge Community Development Center, speak to give some remarks. I'm adding her to the stream right now, and you'll be live.
Assalamualaikum. I assume everyone can hear me. Yeah, I see the nod there from Brother Zead. Tonight, I actually am representing not just Arab American Federation, but the big shoes of the real huge leader in our community, who is Zain Ramawi, as you all know, and as well as Islamic Society of Bay Ridge and the new community center, Bay Ridge Community Development Center. I am the executive director there. And to be very honest with all of you, we are looking really forward to tonight's debate because, as you guys know, the Muslims are 1 million strong in New York City, and we would like our voice heard, and we would like to 100% be a part of the political sphere that is New York City. So I look forward to the debate tonight. I thank you guys for hosting it. And I thank you for giving us the opportunity to listen in on the very important talk that's going to happen. Thank you, Zainab. It's great to see you, and everyone that came out tonight.
Jazakallah khairan, Sister Bibi. Always a pleasure having you. Let me get now. Oh, so Brother Tariq Rahman, he seems to be working now. So Brother Tariq Rahman, he's the executive director of NYMU's, New York Muslims United for Civic Engagement. Let me get him on the stream. You're live, brother.
Assalamualaikum. I want to welcome all brothers and sisters. Thank you for coming. This is one of the time that we all come together and join our voice and our work together to make a difference in New York City. And I think if we all work together, we can make the change to come in. And as with the Shura, we are doing voter registration, come out and vote. These are the work we need to do to make our community strong, our voice becomes stronger. So I look forward to working with you as a common, in a common platform, especially in coming days. Thank you very much.
Jazakallah khairan, Brother Tariq Rahman. Always a pleasure to have you. Next, I wanted to invite Brother Sulaiman from Task. Mir Sulaiman Ali is I believe the government liaison for Task in New York. I'll add him to the stream right now, and you'll be live.
Sorry, everybody. Thank you, Musab. Sorry, my video is chopping up a bit, so I'm just gonna just turn it off so that my audio is clear. First of all, I want to thank Musab, Majlis Ash-Shura, for really hosting this event. It's a very important, time for the Muslim community. As many folks know, the Muslim community played a big role with the mayoral election after Bloomberg with Mayor de Blasio. And it's really important, and it's great to see that the Muslims are really taking a proactive stance now and really seeing and really questioning the next person to make sure that our community needs are heard. We're from the Turkish community, we're very excited to see what our candidates could offer the Muslim community as a whole, not just one specific community. And we really are excited to see how this reform goes out. I definitely want to thank Brother Zead Ramadan. He was a mentor of mine when I was interning at CARE way back when he was the president. And I also want to thank Sister Zainab. I'm a big follower of yours on Twitter. So, keep up the great work there. And I look forward to how this event goes. Jazakallah khair. Assalamualaikum.
Jazakallah khairan, Brother Sulaiman. Let me add our moderators. I think we have Brother Salim Sadiki from ICNA CSJ. I don't see him here. All right. So to the speakers, after you've spoken, I'm going to remove you from the studio just to save space. But I guess I just wanted to take this opportunity to speak a little bit about the vision of what this, forum is all about, right? At Majlis Ash-Shura, Islamic Leadership Council of New York, my name is Musab, I'm the outreach director. And what we are trying to do here is to engage Muslims politically, but specifically engage the people who are often not engaged, even though they go out and vote in droves. So we wanted to set up this forum where, Muslim voters will be able to reach out to the candidates and actually get to meet them, speak with them, hear them and meet them for who they are, and actually question them on the issues, right? And this is just the beginning. The goal is to build a Muslim voter electorate that's strong, that's educated, and that goes out and votes, but also knows who they are and knows what they stand for. So that's the vision behind this candidate forum. That's the vision behind the direction Majlis Ash-Shura has taken this year. And yeah, so as many of you may have seen, we at Majlis Ash-Shura, we were able to get started the New York Muslim Voter Project. It's not just a Majlis project. It is actually a project that we're working with 8 other organizations. It's a coalition of member and non-member organizations of Majlis Ash-Shura. And we have been able to, alhamdulillah, register voters. And the goal is to register, contact, and turn out voters in the upcoming election, inshallah. Now, we have Brother Eric Adams jumping in very soon, but I wanted to give a chance to the moderators, enough from me, to kind of speak about, this initiative, what it is, what they want to see about the forum. And, again, like I said, we have great hosts. Sister Zainab Iqbal is an up-and-coming local journalist in Brooklyn. Brother Zead, I mean, he really needs no introduction. He's a bastion, a pillar of the community. He's been, to quote him today, he's been engaged in politics when I was in diapers. So we're gonna have them come up and speak, inshallah.
Assalamualaikum. I thought my face was... Sister Zainab, would you like to start?
No, you can start. It's okay.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum. One of the most essential things that we can do as Muslim Americans and Muslim New Yorkers is be engaged in our politics. Unfortunately, though we have over 1 million people in the metropolitan area, a very small percentage of our community comes out to vote. And when politicians don't make decisions that are in our best interest, which we think are justified, a lot of it has to do with the fact that we don't vote. Most of our community does not vote. This newer generation, we understand immigrant generations are getting used to the process of democracy and getting involved in voting and registering. This next generation, the ones who were born here, must be involved. It is essential for the future of Muslims in New York to gain a political voice, to be employed at the highest level in government, to can be considered leaders throughout New York City. We must be engaged in the vote. And I think this forum is essential to understand and learn about who the people that are running for office, where their positions on issues that are very sensitive to us as a Muslim community. And so this is very important, and I thank the Majlis for putting this forum together. And I'm looking forward to working with my sister Zainab to ask some really sharp questions and ensure that the community is informed about these candidates who are before us today. So thank you, and I look forward to an exciting night.
Well, I didn't know how to prepare something, so I'm just gonna say it on the fly. I think Muslim voices are unheard, mostly in like the mainstream media. And as a journalist, I try my hardest to give Muslims a voice. And I've always told people to do the same. And like, I think everyone should become a journalist. It's really fun. And now I'm excited to co-host this forum. So yeah, let's see what happens.
So I'm just coordinating with Eric's team right now to see where he is, but he should be jumping on any minute now. But actually, while we have the hosts here, Brother Zead, if you could speak a little bit more about your experience, I guess not necessarily growing up in New York City, but your experience in politics in New York City while we wait for Brother Eric to get on.
Yeah, the first thing that I think any responsible Muslim New Yorker should do, and it says it in our faith, to be involved in our community, to help as much as we can with our neighbors and our community, to have a voice, to be part of a group. So the first thing that I ever did was I joined my local community board, and it was interesting because at that time it was after a couple of Muslim-related incidents, and when I first joined, they didn't know who I was, and so they were talking about Islam in a way with no Muslim in the room. And then when they discovered that there was a Muslim in the room, they changed the way they talked about Muslims in the room. And then after a while, when they got used to my presence, they said, "Hey, could you teach us more about that situation? We don't understand it." So they went from completely not knowing anything about Islam to tempering their voices about Islam, to listening to Muslims about what Islam actually represents. And I think that's the value that I brought. And that's the thing that I understand, that when Muslims get engaged, they actually stop uninformed conversation about themselves. They temper the conversations to make it logical and reasonable. And then they bring good and true and honest information about what it is to be a Muslim. So there's a value of us joining organizations like our local police council, police precinct council, a local community board, a local non-for-profit that works in the parks. All of these things, we are all symbols and we're all representatives of our community. And the more that we get involved, the more that people learn about what Muslims actually represent. And they see the fact that our faith requires us to be generous. The faith requires us to give, charity continuously, and that we're wonderful neighbors. For the most part, not every community is perfect, but for the most part, that we're very giving, we're very charitable, we're very neighborly, and we're great citizens. And they just need to know that it doesn't matter how you dress. It doesn't matter whether you're a Jew and how you dress. It doesn't matter if you're a Muslim and how you dress. It doesn't matter if you're a Mormon and how you dress. It doesn't matter. It's about how you represent yourself in society. And that's one of the most important things I think I learned in public service. And then from there on in, you join other organizations and you end up becoming leaders in the community. And that's what we need more of.
Yeah, that was, great, excellent delivery. I wanted to give Brother Salim Sadiki a chance to introduce himself, introduce ICNA CSJ. So Brother Salim, I'm going to add you to the stream right now. You're live, brother. Brother Salim, I think you're muted. Brother Salim, I think you're muted. Unmute. There you go. You're good.
Yeah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidil Anbiya wal Mursaleen. I don't know since beginning why I was unable to show myself in this stream, but I've been watching everything since the beginning. Jazakallah khair for everyone to be joining in this wonderful session. My name is Salim Sadiki and I am representing ICNA CSJ, Council for Social Justice. As most of you know, that ICNA has several branches and working in relief and social civic engagement, etc. So ICNA is a grassroots organization. It's a very diversified organization of Muslims. We have the chapters over 40 states throughout the United States. And we also have roots, deep roots in 5 boroughs in New York City and Long Island, alhamdulillah. We are thankful to Majlis Ash-Shura for providing this platform that we all community organizations and mosques, masajids getting together in an effort to awakeness in our community, giving them some sort of basic information about the political system in USA, and especially focusing in New York City. And hopefully we will work together on this path and educate our community and bring them to the platform where their voice can be heard on those avenues where it should be heard for a long time. Jazakallah khair, everybody. Assalamualaikum warahmatullah.
Jazakallah khair, Brother Salim Sadiki. And we have actually Eric Adams, our first candidate, come in. So this is when I leave. But before I leave, I just want to let people know we do have Maghrib did come in. And, you know, you can feel free to get up, pray, and return to the program. We're going to be here. So this is absolutely when I leave. I'm going to let the moderators take it from here.
You're on mute,
Hi.
bro. How are you? Assalamualaikum. How are you?
Walaikum assalam. I am good. How are you doing?
Quite well, quite well.
Awesome. All right. So I'm just going to begin with the first question. Okay. So as you may know, Muslims are over 10% of New York City's population, but they have been badly underrepresented in past administration leadership roles or have been given token positions. As mayor, will you bring representation and diversity to your administration in key roles, which includes Muslims?
Yes, and you know, I've shared my vision with you know, the Muslim community on this. It's so important. Number one, the city government should reflect the diversity of the city. When you look at a million Muslims in this city, you should see real representation. And number two, we should go to Muslim organizations, nonprofits, and allow them to be service providers for their community. We should not have outside entities come into your community and provide the necessary social services. And I say this for all communities. The individuals who provide the social services should reflect the community's population. So yes, on the government end, but I would go even further.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the next question has to do with taxi cab drivers. A lot of them make up the South Asian population, the Muslim population. Basically, taxi ridership is historically low due to the pandemic, and for hire drivers are suffering in debt. And a story last week stated that taxi cab drivers are seeking more than $2.5 billion from the TLC, saying they paid artificially inflated prices for the taxi medallions, losing hundreds of millions as a result. And I'm sure you remember in 2018, 8 cab drivers killed themselves because of overwhelming financial burdens. As mayor, what will you do to ease their burdens, ease the burdens of cab drivers in New York City?
I remember those tragic losing their lives. I remember not only due to the stress of being drivers, but also the large number of drivers throughout the years who were assaulted and attacked. I stood up when I was with 100 Blacks in law enforcement years ago and talked about the safety of drivers and how the city did not provide real safety. I've advocated for this issue for a long time. And you're right, a large number of the drivers are from South Asian descent. and many of them are Muslims. And I'm going to, number one, I support their lawsuit. And second, we should come up with some form of bailout to assist those who have lost their life savings due to the improper selling of the medallions. And I'm going to work with the advocates, the drivers, to come up with the real solutions. And my goal is to make them whole in a real way.
Mm-hmm. I'm just going to follow up a little bit. I'm sure you mean well, but do you think all of that, doing all of that is enough? Like, there are thousands of cab drivers in New York City, right? And when I ask you about easing their burden, I don't only mean financially, right? I mean like their emotional burden and like, do you know the physical toll it takes on your body, like just sitting there in one cramped spot for like 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for 35 years, as like so many of these drivers have done, and like risking getting a ticket to use a bathroom, for example, right? These are the problems they have to go through, and none of them are provided with benefits from the city. Like when you retire, there's no pension. You don't even, like, they only make enough money to feed their families. And so when they retire, they have no money, right? Because they don't receive a pension. So basically, I'm asking, how do you propose protecting these drivers? Like, you know, you were at the rally or the press conference the other day for what happened to Muhammad Anwar in DC, right? Yes. And 2 years ago, these two teenagers in Brooklyn attacked this livery cab driver and they assaulted him. And I remember, like, when I was younger, right? Like, my dad's a cab driver for like 35 years. And like one day he came home with a swollen eye. And we were little, so we didn't know like why he had a swollen eye. And they were like, oh, there's a tree branch in his eye. But basically, we found out that some dude punched him in the face. And this happens all the time, and nothing happens because they're not protected. And these drivers are met with no justice, right? And basically, I'm just asking, what will you do for NYC cab drivers?
Well, that's a great question. And number one, the Black Cars came up with a Black Car Fund where the money was paid into a fund that provided healthcare and other services. We need to duplicate that, number one, so that we can come up with a fund to provide for some of the basic services for the drivers. Number two, the drivers should come up with the ideas, everything from what you just indicated, being in the cramped space, to the right to use restrooms. I think the drivers are going through these actions, and so the ideas of how to alleviate what they're going through should come from the drivers. They should come with a list of recommendations on what they would like the city to do within their span of control. The city can't give them pensions because they're not considered city employees, and many times they're independent. But there are things that the city can do, and instead of the city attempting to dictate to the drivers should come up with a list of things they would like to see the city do. This way, we are hitting a mark and not just scattering and praying and don't really provide the relief that they're looking for.
Okay, moving on. Many New Yorkers and millions of Americans rallied and were part of a BDS movement against South Africa's apartheid regime in the 1980s. Do you think New Yorkers should or should not have the freedom to lawfully rally and boycott, divest, and sanction any entity or government that they choose without threats of repercussion?
I was part of those South African boycotts in March. I visited South Africa, and I was also, as a student, leading many of those boycotts in marches. In this city, in this country, I should say, one has the right to protest, and they should have the right to protest without any form of repercussion. That is what this country is made of. It is made of the right to protest. And I will continue as a protester for South African rights. I did it. And as in any country or any group that would like to have the right to protest, they have the right to do so.
Let's talk about school lunches. There are over 100,000 Muslim students in New York City public schools. And right now, only 32 of them are certified to serve halal meals in a program coordinated by the Department of Education and several community organizations. I know you have mentioned, along with other candidates, that you will create a that you support the idea of expanding the program. But as mayor, will you create a permanent budget line to fund the halal meal program as needed throughout public schools in New York City?
And actually articulated a little further. There's several things I would do. Number one, even some of the boxes that are coming from the federal government, I have been working actively to make sure those boxes are halal meals. That's number one. Number two, we need to make sure that halal food is certified properly. There are far too many, I like to say, bogus entities that are saying that they certify halal meals, and they're not doing that. We need to have stringent rules to make sure when someone is consuming halal food, that it is halal food. Number three, as I stated, that we would ensure in those communities where there's a large Muslim population, we're going to make sure that that school is 100% halal food. And those students, where there's a small number of Muslim students, we're going to make sure that they get the halal food. Every child that wants a halal meal will have the right to get the halal meal. And whatever the budget is to accomplish that, we are going to reach that budget. No one should be denied a meal based on their religious observance.
So a CARE study cited that Muslim children are bullied and discriminated against at least 2 times the national average. And CARE New York has said that one of the leading complaints of New York City Muslim parents is of bullying and discrimination of their children in our city schools, like from being called a terrorist by teachers and students when school administrations were informed of the bias incidents. As mayor, what concrete measures or policies will your administration put in place to battle Islamophobia in New York City public schools?
I have been a leading advocate on these issues. Number one, cultural sensitivity is so important. We treat our educational system instead of an asset-based system, we treat it as a deficit-based system. We need to lift up our differences and have a culturally sensitive educational system. Someone should know why a woman wears a hijab, a kufi, a yarmulke. They should understand what Ramadan is, what Easter is, and other religions. We're going to have a zero tolerance around bullying. I was bullied as a child. I know how painful that could be. But I also did something else. I created Breaking Bread, Building Bonds, 100 dinners across the city, 10 individuals at each dinner, all coming from a different cultural groups. So we can do something that we don't do, and that is talk to each other. Our children are only duplicating the behavior that they're witnessing from the adults. And so by engaging in these conversations, we want to foster a real conversation of having people communicate with each other, changing the behavior of not only the children who are bullying innocent people, but the adults who are bullying innocent people. We've witnessed the hate crimes in this city. When I marched and stood with the young lady who was attacked for wearing a hijab in Staten Island, taking a bus into Staten Island, it was an adult that did that. And so the issue of Islamophobia is starting with adulthood, passed down to our children, and this needs to be a cross collaboration. Number one, holding people accountable for committing hate crimes. Number two, having a zero tolerance for bullying in our schools. Number three, being intentional about allowing us and fostering a relationship of communication. And number four, to make sure we teach our children a culturally diverse environment and asset-based education where we learn from each other.
So during his tenure as mayor, Michael Bloomberg made supportive statements to the Muslim community while conducting unconstitutional secret NYPD and other agency surveillance of them, basically eroding trust and confidence in our community. Mayor de Blasio recently appointed a court-mandated representative to the CCRB to oversee cases of Muslim religious bias with no community input. Will you, as mayor, will you pledge to consult the Majlis and the New York City legal Muslim community organizations when appointing someone to the CCRB who was responsible for overseeing Muslim bias issues?
Well, I know what was wrong under the Bloomberg's administration because I led the marches against that. I led the marches against having police officers in the mosque. I led the protests against the wrongfully incarceration of Muslim young men in 2001 and in 2002 at the federal penitentiary. I was there leading these protests around the illegal surveillance and behaviors towards Muslims. So yes, not only will I sit down with Muslim leaders in the diverse Muslim population to talk about appointments, but also to talk about other things we do in our city, like promotions, precinct commanders, those who are appointed to important law enforcement positions. I'm going to hear from the Muslim leadership to say, is this person a person that's suitable to represent the concerns and protect the rights of the people who are in our city, and particularly among the Muslim population. So I agree 100%. There needs to not only be dialogue, but there needs to be real input and suggestion from the leadership of the Muslim community who they want appointed in that position.
According to this news article, a new report on Friday from State Comptroller Thomas D. Napoli cited the U.S. Census Bureau data showing 78% of businesses with less than 500 employees are still enduring a negative impact due to the pandemic, 1 year after the coronavirus took hold in New York. As you know, many Muslims, especially in Brooklyn and Queens, are small business owners. So as mayor, how do you plan to revitalize the small business sector in New York City?
Several things we can do. Number one, we were betrayed by the federal government in the first round of stimulus dollars that came to the city. It went to large corporations. Large banks doled out the money to their partners and friends in large corporations. They did not ensure that the PPP, which those dollars are our tax dollars, by the way. The federal government was not doing us a favor. They take more than $20 billion, $25 billion that we send to Washington, we don't get back. And so I'm not going to allow that to happen. As the mayor, we're going to do several things. Number one, we are going to create a local banking network such as CDFIs to give our small businesses access to capital and make sure that they can have a line of credit, leveraging the dollars that we invest in large banks in our basic pension funds and other payrolls. We put billions of dollars in banks. They need to come back and assist our small businesses. Two, we're going to cancel the startup fees that are associated with starting up businesses to sort of bring down the cost of our small businesses. Then we want to change our procurement. We spend about $22.5 billion a year in procurement in this city, but much of those procurement dollars go outside the city. There's no reason we can't go to our small businesses for goods and services in the city to make sure that they can have the benefits and the purchase power that comes from our tax dollars. And then we want to use our Chamber of Commerce to do the backroom work for our small businesses. If you are a restaurant, you should be just serving food. You shouldn't have to worry about compliance with governmental agencies, filling out documents, doing payroll. All of that backroom work, we want our Chamber of Commerce to do it. So if you're a baker, I want you just to bake. I don't want you to have to worry about anything else but making sure your business is up and operating. And lastly, we want to look at what's called the Triple Net Lease. These are the taxes that landlords passed on to the small businesses. We want to have a waiver until we're able to come over this financial crisis that we're in and not pass on that additional cost to our small businesses.
Well, do you think it is possible for us to overcome this financial crisis that you talk about?
Yes, it is, with support and assistance from the government. I don't think we should leave our small businesses on their own. It's imperative that we give the support because it's a win-win situation. 51% of our employees come from small businesses. And so if we don't keep our small businesses up and operating, we're going to lose our employee base and we're going to pay in the long term because people are going to fall into the social service net, and that is more costly. So it's better to keep our small businesses open. This way they would keep people hired, they would pay tax into our tax rolls, and at the same time, we won't hurt the economy in our local city, particularly in the outer boroughs in our city.
Okay, cool. Those are basically all the questions we had for you. We do have like these 3 fun questions if you want to answer them.
Yes.
Okay, so would you rather bike, walk, or drive?
A bike.
What book are you currently reading?
An amazing book that I think everyone should read. It's called New York, New York, New York. And it really explains how we actually got here. I love this book. It's an amazing book.
Who is it by?
His name is, I think it's Key Job. If you give me 30 seconds, I'll pull up the title. I'm an audio book person. That's how I read I listen to my books.
So am I.
Okay, I'll make sure I get it over to you. But it's called New York, New York, New York.
Okay, what is your favorite halal food spot?
Oh man, so many. There's one on I'm always on Coney Island Avenue. There's a couple of restaurants that I eat on Coney Island Avenue, but I also go to a Turkish spot that does halal food called Alibaba.
Very good stuff. Mr. President, I was sent in as the wolf, if you remember Pulp Fiction. And so I apologize. I'm going to have to come in and ask you a tough follow-up on one of the questions that you had earlier. But I think it's something that's really relevant, really in the forefront and priority for our community. And we kind of wanted to know because this does affect our freedoms as Americans and as Muslim New Yorkers. You mentioned in connection with the question about rallying and marching for South Africa against the apartheid movement. And I did the same thing in the 80s as well. I was with you in those marches, probably didn't know each other back then, but part of those marches had to do with divesting and boycotting and ultimately sanctioning. And we just wanted to be assured that as Americans and as New Yorkers, that we have our constitutional freedoms to boycott anything that we legally can and to divest from, placing our money wherever we legally, want to. And we want to be assured that anyone that we vote for mayor as a community, they're going to defend our constitutional rights to be able to do those things.
I don't think I wavered at all from answering that question. I was very direct and clear because I don't like to waver on any question. And there's no such thing as a tough question for me because I'm going to be honest. We have a right as Americans to boycott who we want to boycott. We have a right to protest. We have the right to stand up for our rights. And that is who we are as Americans. So you have a right to boycott whatever location you want, whatever country you want, and no one should stand in the way of that. That is who we are as a country.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to move on to Sean Donovan. Before we move on, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Eric's team, specifically Brother Hassan, Pragya. They did amazing getting Eric on board. Eric, you have a great team behind you.
Yes.
And we just got to shout out our Muslim brothers. All right, so we'll move on.
Take care. Good to see you all.
Thank you, Eric.
Take care. Thank you for being with us.
All right, so let me get Sean Donovan on board. Okay, so Sean Donovan is going to be interviewed by Brother Zead, so we'll leave the two of them to it.
Mr. Donovan, how are you today?
So good to see you. Assalamualaikum. I should say Ramadan Mubarak as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And alaikum assalam as well. So this is, I think, very important, especially for you of the three candidates, because the Muslim community isn't really familiar with who Sean Donovan is, even though he's been a public servant for many years, you know, serving New Yorkers and serving the federal government. Just to give people a quick recap, you know, Sean Donovan's got several degrees from Harvard, and he worked under the Bloomberg administration as the Housing and Preservation Department. Is that it?
Correct.
HPD, correct. And he went on to work with the Obama administration as the HUD director, and later on in the very, very important OMB director. So kudos to you on those. Positions that you've held that are very important to service to our city and government. One thing that people might not know is you were the designated survivor in 2010. For people who don't know, a designated survivor is a person who is stocked away in a closet during the the State of the Union address, and if any calamity befell the president, the vice president, the Speaker of the House, etc., this person was taken out of the closet and made the president of the United States. So the designated survivor was something that he was in 2010, and that's something that only one person gets to do a year. And it's been going on since for many years now.
You should know it. I wouldn't quite describe it as a closet, but if I told you
bunker,
but I can't tell you what it was because that's highly classified. But
Okay.
What's not classified is that the TV show Designated Survivor is based on me. So
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Right.
HUD secretary who studied architecture. So,
Right. So we're going to get into the questions. We have approximately 8 questions and a few, a little fun round at the end. It's probably going to take about 15 minutes. And this is a very important opportunity for you to introduce yourself to the Muslim community of New York and them to really understand what you're all about. So the more heartfelt the answers, the better it is. So as elected officials, both Scott Stringer and Eric Adams are familiar with parts of the New York City Muslim community and have stood by it when they were targets of bias, crimes, discrimination, and have advocated for some of their issues. You've been a government official for many years, yet our community is not very familiar with you. To get to know you better, we wondered if you could tell us if you've ever engaged the New York Muslim community and what have you done to benefit, support, or stand with it?
So, Zead, first of all, what I would say, let me start with a little bit of personal history here. I am the grandson and son of immigrants. My grandfather was one of 10 poor Irish kids who left the south side of London as a teenager on a boat alone to West Africa and then to South America. My father grew up first speaking Spanish and then learned English in Costa Rica and Lima, Peru. Came to this country like so many to get an education and came to this city because he was searching for his American dream, and he found it here. But as a child, I saw homelessness exploding on our streets. I saw communities literally crumbling, even burning to the ground. And that was what lit a fire in me to go to work on behalf of this city. And literally, as a student in school, I read about East Brooklyn congregations, a group of churches, synagogues, mosques that were working to rebuild Brownsville in East New York. And I came to them and said, put me to work. I went to work for a nonprofit and literally started helping rebuild the same communities I'd seen burning as a kid. And so I have deep roots in this city, a lifelong New Yorker, and deep roots working with religious congregations, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, again and again. Now, I left the city for 10 years to go be in President Obama's cabinet, but that does not mean I don't have deep roots. And it doesn't mean I haven't worked very closely with the Muslim community, both there. I would also say I engage deeply in these issues in the federal government as well. And I think it's one of the unique things about me as a candidate. No one has the relationships that I have, not just with President Biden and Vice President Harris. The Homeland Security Secretary is a close friend. He's the first person of color ever to hold that role. He has been a supporter of mine and a good friend, a colleague. And so I have unique relationships to be able to move forward the interests of Muslims in New York that no one else in this race does. I would also say that I engage deeply with the Muslim community here and nationally. Asma Mirza, who worked for me at OMB, it was actually her mosque that President Obama visited. And I made that connection. And you remember, that was a powerful moment at a time when we saw one of the far too frequent flare-ups of violence against and hatred against Muslims in this country that I was part of working to make sure. So my roots are deep and those relationships are deep. And I really look forward to continuing the work that I'm doing. Every week, I am visiting at least one mosque around the city. I was at the Bronx Muslim Center just a few weeks ago and had a remarkable visit there. Yahweh was incredibly welcoming to me, introduced me. We had worked together earlier. And so I am doing that work, but I have always done that work.
Thank you, Mr. Donovan. We're going to talk a little bit about diversity in corporations and government. We were supposed to have sort of a forum, but the format changed. So some of the conversation starts out with, for example, as controller, Scott Stringer led an effort to force Fortune 500 companies to diversify their organizations. Muslims are over 10% of New York City's population, but have been badly underrepresented in past mayoral administration leadership roles or given token positions. Will your tenure bring more representative diversity to your administration in key roles, which includes Muslims?
Absolutely. And you don't have to take my word for it. Look at my record of the teams that I've built again and again in my roles in public service. I mentioned Asma a moment ago, but I had a broad and diverse group religiously, in terms of race, sexual orientation. Again and again, I've done that. But I would also say this is an issue. You asked me to be a little personal here. 30 years ago this year, I met John Lewis because I gathered a group of multiracial students, including Artie Korwar, a Muslim, and we traveled, the 12 of us, the route of the Freedom Rides on the 30th anniversary. We invited John Lewis to ride the first mile, and to our great surprise, he did. And that began a 30-year friendship with him. Equity and ensuring everyone is included has been central to why I chose to go into housing, because we segregate people through housing more than anything else. And it's why when I was HUD secretary, I led the charge on giving real meaning to the Fair Housing Act of 1968. In fact, you may remember that when Donald Trump still had a Twitter account, he was attacking my work by saying that Joe Biden was trying to destroy the suburbs. My work was to use the Fair Housing Act to make sure that everyone, no matter what you look like, who you worship, who you love, could live wherever they choose in this country. And that earned me proudly the attacks of Donald Trump. So these are values I've lived for more than 30 years, starting as a student, and they are central to why I became a public servant and who I will be as mayor.
Thank you very much. Taxi ridership is historically low due to the pandemic, and for-hire drivers are suffering in debt. A story recently read, taxi cab drivers are seeking more than $2.5 billion from the City of New York TLC Commission, saying they paid artificially inflated prices for their taxi medallions, collectively losing hundreds of millions as a result. In 2018, 8 cab drivers committed suicide because of overwhelming financial burdens. As mayor, what will you do to ease the burden of the thousands of cab drivers in New York City who are suffering both financially and mentally?
It's so tragic. And I have to say, it is far too familiar. You may remember that when I was housing commissioner, we saw the housing crisis, the mortgage foreclosure crisis, predatory lending developing in this city. And I went to work developing a nonprofit called the Center for New York City Neighborhoods that was the very first and the most aggressive city response to that lending crisis. I remember so many families that were in those same desperate straits that you just described, losing their entire life savings, losing their home. And it was really my work to bring legal assistance, housing counseling, and financial assistance to those families through the Center for New York City Neighborhoods that got me noticed by President Obama, to tell you the truth. And then I went to work at a national level, trying to, working to right the wrongs that we'd seen from the worst debt crisis the country has seen, certainly since in our lifetimes. And so no one is better prepared to attack this issue and right these wrongs. What it requires is a real commitment. Again, no one else has done this, to getting real help and representation, legal assistance, counseling that can ensure we go through loan by loan. And then no one is better prepared to go directly to the financial institutions that made these loans and demand that those loans be written off or written down in ways that make them sustainable. And guess what? It's not just enough to repair that damage. We have to make sure it never happens again. And so I would make sure that we regulate that lending in ways that we did the housing market. It is now illegal, because of the work we did in the Obama administration, to make a loan to someone you know they can't afford. Right. Why should you be able to make a loan on a car rather than a house that you know that person can't afford, that's right. Predatory? And so I would end that practice going forward as well.
Thank you. Many New Yorkers, millions of Americans, and maybe you, rallied and were part of a BDS movement against South Africa's apartheid regime in the 80s. I was. We're the same age, by the way, turns out. Do you think
1966?
Did you get your AARP card? Do you think New Yorkers should not have the freedom, should or should not have the freedom to lawfully rally and boycott, divest, and sanction any entity or government that they choose without threat of repercussion?
Absolutely, they should have the freedom.
The foundation here is we've done this before.
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone should have the freedom. I will go farther than that. It is a central principle of this democracy that we can protest, and it is a central part of our freedoms. That is why I retraced the route of the freedom rides 30 years ago as a student. It is why I've been engaged in protests of all kinds over the years. And it is fundamental to who we are as Americans, as New Yorkers, that we have the freedom to express our discontent with our government, with other governments, without fear of targeting or retribution for that. And so I am intolerant of hatred and intolerant of discrimination of all forms. And I am absolutely not going to tolerate infringing anyone's rights to express their opinions, their valid opinions about the politics of the world. And we need a mayor who will defend those rights to the death.
Thank you very much. Halal meals in public schools. You ready? There are over 100,000 Muslim students in New York City public schools. 32 schools are certified to serve halal meals in the program coordinated by the New York City Department of Education and several Muslim community organizations. You've mentioned that you support the idea of expanding the program, but as mayor, will you create a permanent budget line to fund the halal meal programs as needed throughout New York City schools so people can honor their faith?
Of course, absolutely. It is, and I will say this as as the son of an immigrant who was beaten up for his religion as a child, it is central to what I believe about this city, that we honor and lift up everyone, and we celebrate our diversity, and this is central. And look, I would go farther than this. It can't just be in our schools. It has to be in every way that we support those who are hungry. One of the things you should know about me, even as I was running for mayor, when the pandemic happened, I raised over $1 million and started a program called Common Table. Here was the thing. We had a Get Food program. We were feeding people across this city, but we were doing it in ways where one size fit all, where we couldn't really get them culturally appropriate, religiously appropriate food. And by the way, the food wasn't that good. And so I partnered with restaurants, got them cooking again, and developed an app to deliver hot, fresh, culturally, religiously appropriate meals directly to people's doors so that they would not have to go wait 4 hours in line at a soup kitchen, maybe get COVID. And that's who I am. Those are the kinds of innovative solutions that I bring. We ought to be doing that in SNAP. We ought to make sure there's a restaurant meal program that has the full diversity of who we are as New Yorkers. We ought to do it in every single program, including the schools.
Excellent. Thank you. Now, you mentioned getting bullied when you were a kid, and the next thing we have is about Islamophobia in schools. So a CARE study cited, Council on American-Islamic Relations study, cited that Muslim children are bullied and discriminated against at least 2 times the national average. And CARE New York has cited that the leading complaints, the leading complaints that they receive from New York City Muslim parents is of bullying and discrimination of their children in our New York City schools based on their faith, from being called a terrorist by teachers and students, even when school administrations were informed of the bias incidents, nothing was done. What concrete measures or policies will your administration put in place to battle Islamophobia in New York City public schools? And I just wanted to tell you this, that I have children myself, and in schools, a teenager and an 8-year-old, and the damage that it does to their morale or their self-worth as Americans, let alone as New Yorkers and people who should be proud of their heritage, their background, and their faith, is truly damaging. And it really adversely affects them psychologically. And this has been going on for a generation now. So we really need somebody to come in there and understand that this has been affecting our community. I mean, over 100,000 kids in the public school system, and a generation that's out of that already that has been impacted adversely.
Yeah. Well, Zead, I'm sorry for your children, and no child should have to go through what you just described. You've reminded me, and I'm going to get emotional here, that Asma Mirza, who I mentioned to you, who worked for me at OMB, who I was one of the most remarkable public servants I've ever worked with, who brought President Obama to her mosque. Can you imagine the pride, bringing the President of the United States to your mosque? The day after Donald Trump was elected, she didn't come to our morning meeting. I walked to her office and I found her weeping at her desk in her hijab. She looked up at me and said, "This is my country, Sean. They're going to take it from me." That's what she said the day after he was elected. I'll never forget it. And that is not who we are as a country. That's not who we can be as a city. I would not allow us to be that city. And we need concrete steps to change this. We must teach every child in our schools the true history of this country and the world, to respect each other. They must understand from the beginning that we are all created equal in this country. And we must make sure that our schools, not just what we teach, but who teaches it, who leads those schools, reflects that. We have 45% teachers of color in a school system that is more than 85% teachers of color. That must end as well. We must be the true gorgeous mosaic, as David Dinkins said, within our teachers. as well as within our schools. And we have to make sure that every single school lives up to those standards in a way that is profound. And it includes the languages that we teach as well. I'm proposing 450 more dual language programs across New York City schools. Those are good for everyone. Should learn a second language, right? It shouldn't just be isolated to those who don't speak English as a first language. Everyone should benefit from that. And so those are just a few of the things. I'm sorry for getting emotional, but it is, your story moved me. So
thank you. During his tenure as mayor, your boss, Michael Bloomberg, made supportive statements to the Muslim community while conducting unconstitutional, secret NYPD and other agency surveillance of them simultaneously, eroding our trust and confidence, eroding the trust and confidence of our community in the city government. Mayor de Blasio recently appointed a court-mandated representative to the CCRB to oversee cases of Muslim religious bias with no community input, and someone who refused to accept that Islamophobia exists. Will you pledge to consult the Majlis Ash-Shura, whose forum you're on tonight, and who is the umbrella organization for over 90 Islamic centers and mosques in New York City, and New York City legal Muslim community organizations when appointing someone on the CCRB who is responsible for overseeing Muslim bias issues? We just want to make sure that rather than having a mayor who kind of imposes someone on us for their political expediency, that we have educated legal minds who say this person is informed, understands our issues, and they should be the person who oversee this, not as a defender, but as someone who understands fully the legal aspects and the social aspects of being in New York as a Muslim who are under review.
Absolutely, I'm committed to that. Let me just take a moment, though. It's not the question you asked me, but I want to be very clear. The actions of the NYPD at that time were wrong. Stop and frisk was wrong. And I joined an administration that in Washington that actually brought civil rights lawsuits against those practices. So I want to, again, you didn't ask it, but I want to leave no doubt here about those practices. I will also say I was 5 blocks from the World Trade Center on 9/11, and it profoundly affected me. And the anti-Muslim hatred after that was one of the saddest moments in my lifelong time in New York, and completely unacceptable. I would also just say one more thing about this. I told you a few minutes ago that I began my career as a student getting interested in a remarkable set of nonprofit and community organizations, East Brooklyn congregations, others like Nos Quedamos and Mid-Bronx Desperados and others. I fundamentally believe in community-led planning and community-led voices that shape the way our government works. Bottom up rather than top down is the way I've always worked in government. And it would be central to how I work as mayor to never make a decision without gathering true input around those decisions.
Thank you. The last question is about small business support. A new report Friday from State Controller Thomas DiNapoli cited U.S. Census Bureau data showing 78% of businesses with less than 500 employees are still enduring a negative impact due to the pandemic 1 year after coronavirus took hold of New York, end quote. Many Muslims throughout the boroughs are small business owners, thousands, tens of thousands. As mayor, how do you plan to revitalize the small business sector in New York City?
Well, as the son of an immigrant who came to the city and started a business, this is also personal to me. And first, we have to recognize that we have to do a better job of getting aid directly to those businesses quickly and in ways they can actually use it. And we saw the failure early on because there was an inability for those businesses to access PPP. One of the things I've done in my career is to work with nonprofits and other community organizations that have real relationships and can funnel aid quickly to those who need it most. And the problem was we bypassed those, right? They're community-based nonprofits, they're CDFIs, there's a whole range of different organizations, and we have to engage them. We have to engage organizations like yours and groups that really have trust, because only from a trusted messenger will you actually be able to get the aid directly to where it's needed. So that's one. But we also have to recognize that there were huge problems here even before COVID hit. And what we need to do is reform the way we treat and encourage small businesses overall. Why do you have to go to 8 different websites in order to get approved? I was meeting with business owners in Jackson Heights and recently, and I heard just the process to go through to get a sign approved today is insane. I've heard all over the city about fines during COVID, different agencies coming and saying different things and fining for different things. All of that, we made it so hard, even without COVID, to start and keep a small business open. That has to fundamentally change. And I would really empower local community organizations to help on that as well.
Thanks. Thank you very much. That's the end of the questions. We have a couple of quick rapid fire fun questions for you. You ready to go?
Ready.
All right. Bike, walk, or drive? What do you prefer?
Bike. I been biking, and I learned to ride a bike in New York City streets. I have the scars to prove it right here. And I'm going to bike whenever I can.
Good. Now, you mentioned 2 presidents, and this one would definitely not apply to one. What book are you currently reading?
Don't tell President Obama. I have his latest book, The Promised Land, on my shelf, but I've been reading something else, which is Caste by Isabel Wilkerson, which is a remarkable book. And it has powerful implications, I think, for the anti-Muslim violence and hatred we see in this country, along with many other things.
Okay. You're in Brooklyn, right?
I am.
Oh, so
born in Manhattan,
yeah,
but raised my kids in Brooklyn. I saw the light and moved.
No, just because it pertains to the third question, and I figured that what's your favorite halal food spot? Is there one?
Oh, this is easy. Bedouin Tent on Atlantic Avenue.
Okay.
Waleed and I have been friends for over 20 years. I took my kids there. And that's my regular lunch spot now. I live, when I moved back, we moved a couple blocks from there, back into the old neighborhood in Borum Hill.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Donovan. It's been a pleasure meeting you and having the community learn about you and where you stand on a lot of issues that mean a lot to us. And you're done for the evening. Thank you so much. And thank you for
we go have dinner? I'll go to Bedouin Tent.
Yeah, okay. We're all going to go to Bedouin Tent. We'll check
Thank you so much, Sean.
Again.
Thank you. Big elbow bump to all of you.
All right. And that is it from us, actually. Give me 1 second. All right. Yeah, so that is it from us. That's the program. Unfortunately, City Comptroller Scott Stringer was unable to make it tonight. Initially, we had him confirmed, but their schedule went haywire. But yeah, I really wanted to take an opportunity to thank our amazing hosts, our amazing moderators. They did an excellent job. I want to thank you all for coming out. Any closing words from either of you guys? Brother Zead, you always got closing words, man.
No, it's very important for us. This is recorded. We know what they said about protecting our freedoms to protest and rally and divest and sanction. So, and we didn't say to them internationally, we didn't mention any countries besides South Africa. And they actually offered, if you wanted to invest against any nation, that's your prerogative. So that was very important for us to hear. as a community, that they are going to protect our freedoms and our rights to divest, sanction, protest, rally, and boycott as we please. So that was I think that was a positive outcome from that. We got that from their mouths, directly to our community. That was very important. And I think that they seem to all be in the right place as far as what their programs and what their initiatives. People can say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that in politics. But the truth of the matter is we really wanted to know if they were on board with supporting those initiatives. And they both seem to be, and they said it themselves, not just 100%, but maybe more, right? On board with a lot of the initiatives that we're concerned about, whether it's halal foods in schools, helping to figure out a plan to end discrimination against our children, against us, et cetera, and hate crimes. So I thought it was a very good, opportunity to meet them. I think Sister Zainab did a great job in following up on some of the questions and making sure that we got a lot of the information done. And Musab, you did a tremendous job by moderating us as well and this whole process. And we thank the Majlis Ash-Shura. Or I thank the Majlis Ash-Shura. But I'm sure I speak for both of us when I say we thank the Majlis for offering our community this opportunity to learn as much as we could and to get involved in everybody. Please, please, please register everyone you know to vote. They will only listen to us if they know we are pulling a lever on election day. Assalamualaikum.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, if either of them gets the nomination, it'll be fun to hold them accountable, based on everything they said over here. So I look forward to that.
Jazakumullah khairan, guys. Again, amazing program. The moderators did an amazing job. I just wanted to reiterate, again, it's super important to vote, super important to register to vote, super important to come out. And I'm just going to take the opportunity to shout out our website, nymvp.org. You can register to vote. You can sign up to volunteer. You can get your masjid involved. You can practically do anything that has to do with voting on this website, but please check it out. If you need to register, use that website. Jazakumullah khairan, everybody. This was the Muslim Community Mayoral Forum. And I just want to thank you all for coming out. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.